How your stress is making you fat. This video is all about your hormones being out of balance and how that's making you fat, and more importantly, my tips, how to fix this. So one of the things that can make you gain, especially that belly fat, is when your cortisol levels are out of balance. And of course, we know cortisol and our stress goes hand in hand. But this is actually a protective mechanism, and our body will put on that extra weight because it is a mechanism of survival. So if we were being chased by that bear and we were going into the season of not being able to find food, this would be an indication that we would need to hold on to that excess belly fat to be able to sustain ourselves through that famine season. But most times we're not being chased by a bear, but our daily stressors can, of course, activate the system of your cortisol and other hormonal systems as well, which I'll talk about. Now, one of those things that we have to mention is fixing the leptin resistance. So this is something that happens over time when we can see with leptin resistance, the brain is reading a signal of high leptin. We eat more food and more food because the brain isn't getting the signal that we're okay, we've got enough body fat. And of course, it's our fat cells that send that leptin to the brain. The brain becomes overwhelmed with more inflammation that's happening and more stress in the system. Now it has that resistance, not reading that proper signaling of that leptin, making us eat more and more food. Another part of this with our stress is pregnenolone. Now, pregnenolone is something that we naturally are going to help to make our other hormones. So things like our testosterone, our estrogen, our progesterone. But with Pregnenolone Steal, because of that high cortisol and because of that leptin resistance, what happens is that pregnenolone is going to preferentially go towards our cortisol production, making more and more cortisol, increasing that inflammation, increasing more of that leptin resistance, and then that adrenal resistance, as well as that insulin resistance. Usually it's the leptin resistance that happens first, then we get the insulin resistance, and then we get that adrenal fatigue. So those mechanisms are really important to understand, but at the end of the day, my tips are going to help to get everything in balance again, especially for that belly fat. So tip number one is, of course, to fix that leptin resistance and, of course, that Pregnenolone Steal. I've got other videos on more tips on how to do that. Tip number two, though, getting those regular sleep schedules is going to be important for your proper melatonin secretion, as well as your leptin secretion, which happens at nighttime. This is important to have a good night's sleep to help with that proper hormonal signaling. Tip number three, rest and meditation. So you've got to have times in the day that you just calm your system down, especially your nervous system. That will help for the proper secretion of all of your hormones and helping with that stress. And number four, taking a few deep breaths outside in natural sunlight and at different times of the day. So of course, first thing in the morning, midday, and as the sun is setting is going to do wonders for that stress and for all that hormonal signaling as it is in tune with nature and your own circadian rhythms to help to reduce that cortisol, especially to target that belly fat as well. Now, for more tips to get rid of belly fat, please check out my video, 5 tips to reduce belly fat you haven't heard. I'll see you there.